Invisible walls, Valerie Norton had perfected the art of invisibility. Not the supernatural kind, but the social variety that allowed her to move through the gleaming halls of Hargrove Technologies without drawing attention. Her shoes never clicked too loudly on the marble floors. Her voice remained just above a whisper during meetings. Her clothing always in muted grays and blues blended with the modern decor of the office. As executive assistant to Dominic Hargrove, founder and CEO of the fastest-growing tech company in the country, Valerie's invisibility was both a professional asset and a personal shield. For 3 years, she had orchestrated his chaotic schedule with precision that bordered on clairvoyance, anticipating problems before they materialized and solving crises without fanfare. "Morning, Mr. Hargrove," she said, placing his preferred breakfast, smoothie, kale, banana, and protein powder on his desk alongside the morning briefing she had prepared. The Tokyo team sent over the revised specs for the neural interface. "I've highlighted the changes on page 3. Dominic barely glanced up from his tablet, his dark eyes scanning financial projections. "The Franklin meeting got moved up?" "Due?" 9:30. "I've already updated your calendar and prepared the presentation with the additional market research you requested last night." Valerie tucked a stray brown hair back into her tight bun. "And I rescheduled your dental appointment. 2, next Thursday." He nodded, already moving on mentally to his next task. Valerie slipped out of his office, used to the abrupt dismissals. At 34, Dominic Hargrove had revolutionized brain-computer interfaces and built a multi-billion-dollar company from the ground up. His brilliance was matched only by his intensity and his obliviousness to anything outside his immediate focus. "I swear he wouldn't notice if you came to work dressed as a circus clown," remarked Paige Mendez, the marketing director and the closest thing Valerie had to a friend at work. As they met at the coffee station, Valerie smiled faintly. "The point? I'm not here to be noticed. Girl, you've got a master's in computational neuroscience that you're using to order his protein shakes and manage his calendar. You could be developing the tech instead of fetching coffee for the guy who does." "I like my job," Valerie said defensively, though the words rang hollow even to her ears. The truth was more complicated. After the disastrous end of her academic career, a very public panic attack during her doctoral dissertation defense, Valerie had retreated into roles where expectations were clear and success was defined by how well she supported others rather than standing in the spotlight herself. Back at her desk, she continued her day of invisible efficiency. She mediated a dispute between engineering and legal, ghostwrote a speech for Dominic's upcoming TED Talk, and fielded calls from investors without ever raising her voice or drawing attention to her contributions. At 7 in the evening, after most employees had left, Dominic emerged from his office, jacket slung over his shoulder. He paused at Valerie's desk, seeming almost surprised to find her still there. "You don't have to stay this late every night," he said, noticing the time for perhaps the first time. "I wanted to finish the quarterly report analysis," she replied. Gesturing to her screen, something flickered across his face, perhaps recognition that she routinely worked 14-hour days without complaint, but the moment passed quickly. "Don't work too late," he said awkwardly, clearly unfamiliar with small talk. "The Peterson contract, did they sign?" "It's this afternoon. The executed copies are in your email." He nodded, satisfied. "Good, that's good work, Valerie." The rare use of her name and the compliment caught her off guard. "Thank you, Mr. Hargrove." After he left, Valerie sat in the empty office, contemplating the strange hollowness she felt. Despite the productive day, outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sparkled in the darkness, full of people living lives where they allowed themselves to be seen. She gathered her things and headed home, wondering how long she could continue, building invisible walls around herself before disappearing completely. The invitation, the annual Hargrove Technologies Anniversary Gala, was the event of the season in the tech world. Everyone who mattered would be there, from venture capitalists to software pioneers, all gathered to celebrate the company's 5th year of unprecedented growth. Valerie had already declined her invitation, as she had every year prior. "You did what?" Tessa Fleming gaped at her roommate from across their small apartment kitchen. With her vibrant red hair and theatrical career, Tessa was Valerie's opposite in nearly every way and her oldest friend. "I'm not going," Valerie repeated, stirring her tea. "I'll just be working behind the scenes anyway, making sure everything runs smoothly. Better to skip the small talk and focus on logistics." Tessa snatched the invitation from the counter. "This says," and I quote, "Valerie Norton and guest, not Valerie Norton. Please continue being a shadow while everyone else has fun. Very funny." "I'm serious, Val. When was the last time you did something for yourself? Something that wasn't related to making Dominic Hargrove's life easier?" Valerie couldn't answer. Her life had fallen into a comfortable pattern of work. Home, sleep, repeat. Even her weekends were often spent preparing for Dominic's Monday meetings. "He probably wouldn't even notice if I was there," she murmured. "This isn't about him. It's about you remembering there's a person named Valerie who exists outside that office." Tessa's expression softened. The panic attack was for years ago, Val. You can't keep hiding forever because one presentation went badly. The memory still made Valerie's chest tighten standing before the doctoral committee. Her research on neural pathways projected behind her when suddenly her mind went blank. The whispers, the pitying looks, the academic career imploding in real time. "I'm not hiding," she protested weakly. "I'm just comfortable where I am." Comfortable isn't the same as happy. Tessa placed her hands on Valerie's shoulders. "Night. Dress up. Have a glass of champagne. Remember what it feels like to exist in a room without trying to disappear?" Across town in his penthouse apartment, Dominic Hargrove stared unseeing at the cityscape beyond his windows. The quarterly numbers were excellent. Peterson contract would revolutionize their neural interface technology. By all accounts, he should be celebrating. Instead, he felt the familiar emptiness creeping in the same void that had been his constant companion since his meteoric rise began. His phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer Hargrove, his younger sister, and the company's. "Coup, confirmed the governor for the gala. You better give a good speech. And please try to smile this year." Dominic grimaced. The gala was his least favorite corporate obligation. A superficial conversation with people who either wanted something from him or wanted to be him. Neither group was interested in who he actually was. He glanced at the time, nearly midnight, and impulsively opened his email. As expected, there was a message from Valerie with tomorrow's schedule. Notes on 3 ongoing projects and a draft of the speech he needed for the gala. He scrolled through her meticulous work, strange thought occurring to him. He couldn't picture her face clearly. After 3 years of working together daily, he realized he'd never really looked at her not properly. She was just that. Efficient, reliable, background. A pang of something like guilt hit him. Was he really that self-absorbed? The next morning, Dominic arrived at the office earlier than usual, coffee in hand. The floor was quiet, but Valerie was already at her desk, engrossed in something on her computer. "Good morning," he said, startling. "Her Mr. Hargrove. I didn't expect you for another hour." She quickly minimized whatever was on her screen. "Do you need something?" He extended one of the coffee cups. "Thought you might want this. Latte, right?" Surprise flashed across her features before she accepted it cautiously, as if suspecting. "A trick, thank you. That's very thoughtful." An awkward silence followed as Dominic realized he had no script for casual interaction with his assistant. "The speech you drafted for the gala is excellent," he said finally. "You'll be there, I assume." "Oh, I don't usually attend the actual event. I prefer to manage things behind the scenes." "You should come," he said, surprising himself. "The whole team should celebrate our success. That includes especially you, considering how much you contribute." Her brown eyes widened slightly. I'll think about it." In her apartment that evening, Valerie stared at the invitation on her kitchen table. Dominic's unexpected words replaying in her mind. Tessa emerged from her bedroom in rehearsal clothes. "So, decision made on Operation Remember, you're a human being?" she asked, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl. Valerie took a deep breath. "I'll go, but I have nothing to wear, and I can't do this alone." Tessa's face lit up. "Say no more. This is literally what I've been training for. One transformation. Coming right up. Later that night, Valerie sent a brief email to the company's event coordinator. Please update my RSVP to attending. Thank you. As she hit send, a mixture of terror and exhilaration washed over her. For the first time in years, she was stepping outside her carefully constructed comfort zone, outside her invisible walls. What she didn't know was that across town, Dominic was reading through employee files, having paused on hers longer than necessary. The basic information told him so little. Masters in computational neuroscience from MIT. Previous research position at Berkeley. Impeccable references. He closed the file, troubled by how little he knew about the woman who essentially ran his life. Perhaps at the gala, he would finally make the effort to see the person who had been right in front of him all along. Transformation hold still. I'm almost done, Tessa said, wielding an eyeliner pen with the precision of a surgeon. Valerie sat rigidly in their bathroom, trying not to flinch as her roommate applied the finishing touches to her makeup. I feel ridiculous, Valerie murmured. This isn't me. It is you. It's just the you that's been buried under sensible blazers and tight buns for 4 years. Tessa stepped back to admire her work. Open your eyes. Valerie complied and barely recognized the woman in the mirror. Her usually restrained chestnut hair cascaded in soft waves past her shoulders, bringing warmth to her heart-shaped face. The subtle makeup enhanced, rather than masked her features, defining her high cheekbones, brightening her complexion, and making her hazel eyes appear wider and more luminous. The key to a good makeover isn't turning you into someone else, Tessa explained, seeing Valerie's stunned expression. It's revealing what was always there. The emerald silk dress they'd found at a vintage boutique hugged Valerie's figure before flowing gracefully to the floor. Unlike her work attire, which seemed designed to help her disappear, this dress caught the light with every movement. I can't wear this, Valerie whispered, panic rising. Everyone will stare. That's generally the point of dressing up for a gala, Tessa replied, adjusting the delicate gold necklace at Valerie's throat. Besides, this isn't about impressing your billionaire boss. This is about you remembering what it feels like to not hide. Valerie touched the unfamiliar softness of her hair. I'm terrified. Good, Tessa said firmly. That means you're finally doing something real. Across town at the Grand Meridian Hotel, Dominic Hargrove stood alone on a balcony overlooking the ballroom where hundreds of guests in formal attire mingled beneath crystal chandeliers. The Hargrove Technologies logo, a stylized neural network, was projected onto one wall, pulsing gently with blue light. Hiding already? His sister Jennifer appeared beside him, resplendent in a tailored midnight blue suit. The party's barely started. Just getting my bearings, he replied, tugging at his bow tie. Despite growing up in wealth, Dominic had never grown comfortable with these social obligations. His mind worked in algorithms and innovations, not small talk and networking. Jennifer handed him a champagne flute. The governor's impressed with the neural rehabilitation program. Children's Hospital Initiative is generating great PR. The stock is up 12% this quarter. By all metrics, you should be celebrating. I am, he said unconvincingly. No, you're observing like you're studying a different species. She sighed. Dom, when was the last time you connected with an actual human being? And I don't mean through a neural interface. He didn't answer, but the question unsettled him. When had he last had a conversation that wasn't about work or technology? Even his few attempts at relationships had fizzled quickly. The women either interested in his wealth or intimidated by his intensity. The board is concerned about the Westlake merger, he said, changing the subject. Jennifer rolled her eyes. The board will survive. Go mingle. Be human for one night. Reluctantly, Dominic descended to the main floor. He navigated through congratulatory handshakes and air kisses, his responses automatic. The faces began to blur together. Investors, developers, social climbers all, wanting a piece of the Hargrove success story. He was nodding absently at something a venture capitalist was saying when the crowd near the entrance shifted. And Dominic's attention was inexplicably drawn to a woman in emerald silk. For a second, he didn't recognize her. The elegant stranger paused at the top of the marble steps, her hand lightly touching the railing as she surveyed the room with obvious apprehension. There was something hauntingly familiar about the tilt of her head perhaps, or the thoughtful furrow between her brows, and then she tucked a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear with a gesture he'd seen 1,000 times across his desk. And realization struck him like a physical blow. Dominic excused himself mid-conversation and moved through the crowd, suddenly urgent. She descended the stairs cautiously, her usual confidence in managing executive crises. Nowhere to be found in this unfamiliar social terrain. He reached the bottom of the staircase just as she did. "Ms. Norton," he said, the formality feeling strange. In this context, she looked up, startled, a blush coloring her cheeks. "Mr. Hargrove, Dominic," he corrected, offering his arm without thinking. "You look... different."
Ah!
A flash of something disappointment crossed her face. "Yes. Well, it's not exactly appropriate to wear office attire to a gala." "That's not what I meant," he said quickly. "You look beautiful." The words hung between them, sincere but inadequate. He was struck by how little he knew about this woman who had been at his side for years. Had her eyes always been that particular? Shade of hazel, almost amber in this light. Had she always carried herself with that quiet dignity? "Thank you," she replied softly. "This is all rather outside my comfort zone." "That makes two of us," he admitted. "Would you like a drink?" As they moved toward the bar, Dominic became aware of curious glances. His co-sister had stopped mid-conversation, her eyebrows raised in surprise. Paige from marketing was openly staring. Even the board members seemed intrigued by this unexpected development. Valerie noticed too, her posture stiffening. "Everyone's watching." "Let them," Dominic said, surprising himself with his indifference to the attention.
Tell me something."
"I don't know about you, Valerie." She looked up at him, confused. "You have my resume. I'm not asking about your qualifications. I realize I've worked with you for 3 years and know almost nothing about who you are outside the office. That's an oversight I'd like to correct." The band began playing a waltz, saving her from having to respond immediately. Dominic extended his hand in silent invitation. After a moment's hesitation, she accepted. As he led her onto the dance floor, Valerie's mind raced. This wasn't how she had imagined the evening being seen, truly seen, by the man who had looked through her for years. Part of her wanted to retreat to the shadows, to the safety of invisibility. But as they began to dance, something shifted. For the first time, they were moving in synchrony, rather than in the hierarchy of boss and assistant. For the first time in years. Valerie felt herself emerging from behind her carefully constructed walls, not because she had changed her appearance, but because someone had finally taken the time to look. New perspectives. Morning light filtered through the blinds of Valerie's bedroom as she stared at the emerald, dress draped over her chair, tangible evidence that last night hadn't been a dream. She touched her lips, remembering the unexpected. Kiss on the terrace after they'd escaped the crowded ballroom for a moment of quiet.
Right.
The way Dominic had looked at her, he looked at her for the first time. "So, Tessa appeared in the doorway with 2 mugs of coffee. Based on the fact that you came home at 3 a.m. with that dreamy expression, I'm guessing Operation Remember You're a Human Being was a smashing success." Valerie accepted the coffee gratefully. It was ... complicated. Complicated is good. Complicated means something actually happened. Tessa perched on the edge of the bed. "Details, please. Spare nothing." "We danced. Truly talked, not about work." He asked about my research at MIT, why I left academia. Valerie paused, still processing. He seemed genuinely interested in me as a person, and Tessa prompted, and then we kissed on the terrace. Valerie buried her face in her hands. "What was I thinking? He's my boss." "You were thinking that you're a brilliant, beautiful woman who deserves to be seen." Tessa squeezed her shoulder. "What happens now?" That question followed Valerie as she dressed for work, choosing a navy dress that was more fitted than her. Usual attire, but still professional. She left her hair down, secured with a simple clip instead of the severe bun. Small changes, but they felt monumental. The office was buzzing when she arrived. Conversations stopped as she passed, resuming. in hushed tones once she was out of earshot. The gala and her transformation were clearly the hot topic of the day. Paige intercepted her before she reached her desk. "Girl, you've been holding out on us? You and Hargrove were the talk of the gala." "It wasn't like that," Valerie protested. Weakly, "Really? Because Rachel in legal said she saw you two on the terrace looking very cozy?" Paige lowered her voice. "Just be careful, Val. Dominic Hargrove has a reputation with women. 3 months, then he moves on like clockwork." Valerie's stomach tightened. "We just talked. It was nothing." "If you say so." Paige didn't look convinced. "By the way, Jasmine Westlake has been in his office for an hour. Rumor is the merger's getting personal." Jasmine Westlake, the brilliant, glamorous CEO of their biggest competitor. The merger had been in negotiations for months, but this was the first Valerie had heard of any personal connection. She settled at her desk, trying to ignore the uncomfortable twist in her chest. At 10 o'clock, Dominic's office door opened. Jasmine emerged, impeccable in a designer suit, her dark hair sleek and professional. She was everything Valerie wasn't: polished, confident, born to the world of power and privilege. "Ms. Norton," Jasmine acknowledged her with a nod. "Dominic speaks highly of your organizational skills." "Ms. Westlake," Valerie replied evenly. "Can I help you with anything?" "No need. Dominic and I have already sorted everything." With a practiced smile, Jasmine departed, leaving a cloud of expensive perfume in her wake. Moments later, Dominic appeared in his doorway. "Valerie, could you come in for a moment?" She followed him into the office, hyper-aware of the eyes watching them. Dominic closed the door, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "About last night," he began. "It was a lovely event," she said quickly. "The company has much to celebrate." He studied her, noting the changes in her appearance. "You look nice. Different, but nice." "Thank you." She shifted uncomfortably. "Was there something you needed?" "Yes, actually. The Westlake merger is accelerating. I need you to clear my schedule for dinner meetings this week." He paused, and I wanted to talk about what happened between us. "There's nothing to discuss," Valerie said, professional mask firmly in place. "It was a gala. People get caught up in the atmosphere." Dominic frowned. "That's not what happened, and you know it, do I?" The words escaped before she could stop them. "'Cause from where I stand, it looks like you noticed. Me for the first time in 3 years because I wore a pretty dress and let my hair down? And now you're having private meetings with Jasmine Westlake. Is that what you think?" he asked, genuinely surprised. "That I only saw you because you changed your appearance, didn't you?" She met his gaze directly. "Conversation? If I'd shown up in my usual clothes?" Before he could answer, his phone rang. The board chairman. Dominic hesitated, clearly torn. "You should take that," Valerie said, retreating toward the door. "I'll clear your schedule for the Westlake meetings." The next few days passed in a blur of uncomfortable encounters and professional distance. Valerie continued her work with her usual efficiency, but something had changed. She no longer tried to be invisible, no longer spoke in a near whisper during meetings. If people were going to talk about her anyway, she might as well own her presence. Dominic noticed. During a product development meeting, she challenged one of his assumptions about the neural interface's market positioning, something she would never have done before. Her suggestion was insightful, drawing thoughtful nods from the team. "Excellent point, Ms. Norton," he acknowledged. Their eyes meeting briefly across the conference table. Later that afternoon, Jennifer Hargrove stopped by Valerie's desk. "Walk with me," she said. "Not really a request." They ended up in the company's rooftop garden, a quiet space few employees utilized. Jennifer studied her thoughtfully. "You've worked for my brother for 3 years," she stated. "In that time, you've turned down 2 promotions that would have taken you out of his direct reporting line." "Why?" Valerie hadn't expected this conversation. "I enjoy my current position." No one enjoys being an executive assistant to a workaholic. Genius with the social skills of a cactus, Jennifer replied bluntly. "Try again." "I'm good at it," Valerie said carefully. "I make a difference in how the company functions." "True, but not the whole truth." Jennifer's expression softened slightly. "Look, I don't know what happened between you two at the gala, but I haven't seen my brother this distracted since our parents died." He's making mistakes, missing details. It's very un-Dominic-like behavior. I'm sorry to hear that, Valerie said, unsure how to respond. Don't be sorry. Be honest with him and yourself. Jennifer fixed her with a penetrating gaze. My brother sees people as functions, not individuals, always has. It's why he's brilliant with neural interfaces, but terrible with actual human connection. If he's seeing you differently now, that's significant. Or it's just novelty, Valerie countered. The assistant finally caught his attention by changing her packaging. Is that what you think of him? Jennifer asked. That he's that shallow? The question lingered in Valerie's mind as she returned to her desk. Was she being fair to Dominic? Or was she using his previous inattention as an excuse to protect herself from potential hurt? As she gathered her things to leave that evening, Dominic emerged from his office. I need the Westlake merger documents for tonight's meeting, he said, his tone carefully professional. They're already in your briefcase, she replied. Along with the market analysis you requested. He nodded, hesitating. Valerie, your car is waiting, she interrupted, unwilling to have this conversation in the office.
Oh.
Ms. Westlake doesn't like to be kept waiting. Something flashed in his eyes. Frustration, perhaps, or determination.
This discussion
isn't over. She watched him leave. Valerie wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life, not by falling for her boss, but by refusing to believe that someone could truly see her for who she was beneath the surface. Beyond appearances, rain pattered against the windows of Hargrove Technologies as Valerie worked late. The office empty except for the occasional security guard. The Westlake merger was entering its final phase, generating mountains of paperwork and frayed nerves throughout the company. For the past week, she and Dominic had maintained a strictly professional relationship. The memory of the gala and the terrace kiss pushed firmly aside, or so she told herself. The truth was more complicated. Every time their hands brushed while exchanging documents, every accidental moment of eye contact during meetings, each instance sent a current of awareness through her that was impossible to ignore. She'd stopped trying to be invisible, but she hadn't figured out how to be fully present either. The sound of the elevator arriving broke her concentration. Dominic emerged, looking tired and slightly rumpled, his tie loosened and jacket draped over one arm.
Hi.
You're here late, he observed, stopping at her desk. Final revisions to the merger contract, she explained. Wanted to have them ready for tomorrow's meeting, he nodded, studying her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. Come into my office? Please. The please was new, a small acknowledgement that they were navigating uncharted territory. Valerie followed him, notepad in hand. As if this were any other work discussion, Dominic didn't sit behind his desk as usual. Instead, he gestured to the sitting area by the windows where the city lights glittered through the rain. They sat across from each other, the professional buffer between them growing thinner by the second. The Westlake merger is nearly complete. He began, thanks in large part to your work behind the scenes. Just doing my job, she replied automatically. No. His voice was firm. You've never been just doing your job, Valerie. You've been the backbone of this company, of my work for 3 years. I see that now. She looked down at her notepad. It took a ball gown and makeup for you to notice. Is that really what? You think? He leaned forward. That I only saw you because you changed your appearance, didn't you? The question hung between them, raw and honest. The gala didn't make me see you, Dominic said quietly. It made me realize I'd been taking you for granted. There's a difference. Valerie glanced up, surprised by his candor. When Jennifer pointed out that I didn't even know what you took in your coffee after 3 years of working together, that was the wake-up call, not the dress. He ran a hand through his hair. I started paying attention before the gala. Just didn't know how to ... connect, so what changed? I did. You met her gaze directly. You've always been brilliant, capable, and yes, beautiful. I was too self-absorbed to appreciate it. But once I started seeing why, couldn't stop. The sincerity in his voice was difficult to dismiss. Still, doubt lingered. And Jasmine Westlake? She asked. The question that had been burning inside her for days. A flicker of confusion crossed his face before understanding dawned. The merger is business, nothing more. Jasmine is interested in our neural interface technology, not me.
That's
Not what people are saying. Since when do you care what people say? Dominic challenged. The Valerie I've come to know values truth over gossip. His words hit home. She had spent years avoiding attention, yet now found herself caught up in office politics and assumptions, the very things she'd always disdained. You're right, she admitted. I've been unfair. We both have. He stood, moving to the window. I've been thinking about what you said about noticing you only after you changed your appearance. It made me question my own perceptions. But then I realized something. What's that? The change wasn't in how you looked. It was in how you carried yourself. He turned to face her. You stopped hiding. And yes, I noticed not because of a dress or hairstyle, but because suddenly you were allowing yourself to be seen. The observation struck her with its accuracy. The physical changes had been minimal compared to the internal shift, her decision to stop disappearing. Why did you turn down those promotions? He asked unexpectedly. Valerie tensed. Jennifer must have told him about their conversation. How did you... I finally read your personnel file properly, he admitted. 2 opportunities to move into neuroscience research within the company, both declined. Why? This was the question she'd been avoiding, the one that cut to the heart of her carefully constructed world. Standing, she moved to join him at the window, watching raindrops trace paths down the glass. After my panic attack, during my dissertation defense, I convinced myself I wasn't cut out for the spotlight, she explained. That I was better behind the scenes, making things happen for other people. Your assistant role was perfect. I could use my brain without having to put myself out there. But that's not who you really are, Dominic said softly. I've read your research from MIT. It was groundbreaking work that directly influenced our neural interface development. She looked at him in surprise. You read my papers? All of them? This week, he smiled ruefully. I should have done it years ago. Your theories on neural adaptation are the foundation of what we're doing here. That was a different version of me. Was it, or was it just you without the walls you've built? He turned to face her fully. Valerie, I'm offering you the position of Director of Neuroscience Research, not because we kissed, not because you wore a pretty dress to a gala, but because you're the most qualified person for the job. The offer stunned her. I don't know what to say. Say yes, he urged. Or say no. But make the decision based on what you want, not what you're afraid of. The weight of the moment pressed on her, not just a career decision, but a choice about who she wanted to be going forward. The safe, invisible Valerie, or the woman who had begun to emerge from behind those walls. And what about ... us? She asked the question she'd been avoiding. If I take this position, I won't be your assistant anymore. That's the point. Dominic moved closer. I don't want an assistant who anticipates my needs. I want a partner who challenges me professionally and personally. People will talk. Let them. His hand found hers. I'm more interested in what we have to say to each other. In that moment, Valerie realized they were both at a crossroads. Dominic was offering her not just a job, but a chance to reclaim the part of herself she'd locked away after one public failure. And perhaps something more, a relationship based not on appearances or positions, but on genuine recognition of each other's true selves. I need to think about it, she said finally. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Take all the time you need. As she gathered her things to leave, Dominic called after her. Valerie. For what it's worth, I would have noticed you eventually. Some people are too extraordinary to stay invisible forever. The next morning, Valerie arrived at the office earlier than usual. She'd spent the night considering Dominic's offer and what it meant for her future. The decision she'd reached wasn't just about a job or a relationship, but about reclaiming the person she'd been before fear had driven her into hiding. She found Dominic in the research lab, reviewing neural interface data with the development team. He looked up as she entered, a question in his eyes. May I speak with you privately? She asked. They stepped into an adjacent conference room. Through the glass walls, the bustle of the company continued, people creating, collaborating. visible in their contributions. "I've made my decision," Valerie said. "I'll accept the research position, but with conditions." Dominic raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening. I want to finish my PhD. The company will need to accommodate my schedule while I complete my dissertation." He nodded. "Done." "Second, I want to establish a mentorship program for women in neuroscience. We have too few female researchers in the field." "Excellent idea. Jennifer will be thrilled." "And third," Valerie continued, her voice steady, "personal relationship between us needs to develop separately from our professional one. If this doesn't work out between us, my career shouldn't suffer." Dominic's expression grew serious. "I would never let that happen. Your value to this company stands on its own merits." "Then I accept." She extended her hand professionally. Instead of shaking it, Dominic took her hand gently. "And what about us? The non-professional part?" Valerie smiled, no longer hiding behind professional detachment or invisible walls. "That's something we'll have to discover together. Beyond appearances, beyond titles. Just us." "I'd like that," he said softly as they returned to the lab. Valerie felt a profound shift, not because she'd changed how she looked or caught the attention of a billionaire, but because she'd finally stopped being afraid to be seen. At the walls she'd built around herself hadn't been protecting her. They'd been limiting her. Later that day, she packed the contents of her assistant's desk to move to her new office in the research department. Paige stopped by. "So the rumors are true," she said. "You're leaving us for the lab coats." "Returning to my roots," Valerie corrected with a smile. "And Dominic?" Paige asked tentatively. "Is my boss one of them, anyway? The rest is complicated." "Complicated is good," Paige replied, echoing Tessa's words from days earlier. "Complicated means something real is happening." As Valerie carried her box of belongings toward her new beginning, she caught her reflection in the glass walls, not the invisible assistant or the transformed gala attendee, but something in between, something authentic. She had spent years believing that being unseen meant being safe. Now she understood that true connection, professional, personal, and everything in between required the courage to be visible, flaws and all. It wasn't about letting her hair down or changing her appearance. It was about letting down the walls she'd built around her heart and mind. And that was a transformation worth embracing.